Sehr geehrte Frau Bundespräsident Calmy-Rey, sehr verehrte Frau Bundeskanzlerin Dr. Angela Merkel, Excellencies, dear members and friends, a warm welcome to the annual meeting 2007 of the members and constituents of the World Economic Forum. First, I want to express our deep gratitude to the Swiss people for their continued support and great hospitality. I want to thank particularly the Swiss federal government, represented here this evening by its President, Micheline Calmy-Rey. We also thank the Canton of Graubünden, represented here by its government and particularly by the President of its government, Dr. Martin Schmid, and above all, we want to thank the population of Davos and the authorities of Davos, led by its Landesmann, Hans-Peter Michel. They provide us with the famous spirit of Davos. The World Economic Forum over the last 37 years has become a true community based on the loyalty of our partners, our members and our friends. On behalf of the Foundation Board, the Managing Board and all my colleagues in the Foundation, I want to thank you for your continued support and partnership, and I want to tell you how much your engagement, your active engagement, is at the heart of all what we are doing, of our common efforts and initiatives in pursuit of our mission of improving the state of the world. Our annual meeting here has a very special role to play. We are, to a certain extent, living in a schizophrenic world. The economy is booming globally, and the signs for this year continue to be promising, but underneath our geopolitical, geo-economic and societal developments are many question marks, many risks, many imbalances, many inconsistencies. We want to shape the global agenda, but we want to do so looking first and foremost at all the fragilities of our global developments and our global systems. This is the unique contribution which we can make to the world at the beginning of each year, to analyze the state of the world, to define the challenges, the risks and the opportunities, to sort out the priorities, and hopefully to come up with some possible solutions for our problems. Davos is the place for integrated, systemic approaches in a world which has become so complex, so complicated, and remains still so departmentalized and fragmented. Davos is the place for strategic, proactive approaches in a world where politics and business have become so short-term oriented. But our meeting is different in a second way. Our meeting brings together the stakeholders of global society. You, over 1,000 leaders of business who are here in this room. You, over 250 politicians and leaders of international organizations. You, the 250 participants from civil society representing NGOs, trade unions, representatives from faith, culture, and particularly also our young global leaders and our grassroots social entrepreneurs. And finally, use the experts and representatives from academia and science, inclusive the presidents of the world's most famous universities. And I should not forget, last but not least, the media, so essential for stimulating our discussions and integrating the general public into our deliberations. We believe that our annual meeting can serve the world in a comprehensive, powerful platform and a catalyst for collaborative action. The technology-driven capabilities of the Web 2.0 world and the power of networks and virtual communities is fundamentally changing our world and our society. We are witnessing everywhere the empowerment of the individual with profound impact on politics and business. For example, the increasing prominence of emerging economies, the rise of new multinationals, the stronger role of consumers over producers, the increasing leverage of commodity suppliers, the growth in influence of hedge funds and private equity. This all creates the base for the theme of our annual meeting, the motto of our annual meeting, the shifting power equation. In conclusion, our annual meeting is based on the premise that we have first a global agenda with ever-increasing risks and pressures, and that second, these issues on the global agenda can be best advanced in a multi-stakeholder framework, and third, that we must embrace the shifting power equation as an opportunity for innovative approaches. You may remember at the end of the last meeting, our friend and board member Peter Brabeck of Nestlé reminded us that when we leave from here, we are all, as individuals, responsible for the implementation of the ideas which we generate together over the next days. In this respect, let me end with a quote from Mahatma Gandhi. You here in the room must be the change you wish to see in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, I have now the pleasure to introduce the President of the Swiss Confederation, Mrs. Calmy-Rey, who at the same time is the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Mrs. President, I know how much issues like bridge building, reconciliation, taking care of the disadvantaged in our world is close to your heart. In this respect, I'm particularly pleased that we share many ideals, and I'm pleased to give you the floor for welcoming us in Switzerland.
Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, at a time when innocent people are targeted by suicide bombers or by armies equipped with high-tech weaponry, when children are abused as soldiers, when climate change puts the survival of our planet at risk, where do we stand with regard to our responsibilities? Where does responsibility lie for mass starvation that causes the deaths of tens of thousands of people every day, for neglect of the most basic human needs, and for those who suffer most from the destruction of our environment? Is it that people lack a set of shared values? How can we translate our responsibility into actions? When we try to answer these questions, we have to acknowledge two plain facts. One, respect for human rights, the rule of law and good governance are the basic preconditions of lasting peace and security. We know that conflict is often caused by systematic violations of human rights and contempt for the rule of law. Two, the nature of modern-day conflicts. The lines on the battlefield are becoming blurred. States and non-state actors are getting intermingled. Armed groups, warlords, are often in command. Guerrilla wars are being fought by regular troops. Soldiers are adopting the guise of civilians, and civilians are taking on the role of soldiers, and military arsenals are developing at an exponential rate. Traditional concepts of security primarily aim to ensure the security of states through defending their borders and institutions. Today, the idea of security is evolving and focusing increasingly on human security, the security of ordinary human beings. Human security is a response to the highly complex conflicts, which have in many cases replaced conventional wars between states. These new conflicts involve different actors using different weapons. They inflict new levels of destruction and suffering on civilian populations. Besides, traditional concepts of security have left aside new threats to human security, like destruction of environment. The policy of human security seeks to get states and non-state actors to respect a number of shared rules and values. It presupposes respect for the most fundamental humanitarian standards, the Geneva Conventions. Henri Dunant, the founder of the International Committee of the Red Cross, understood how to translate the principles of basic human needs and ethical behavior into action. Today, we are working to implement them for civilian population all over the world. There is a lot to do. Hunger, human rights violation, crimes against humanity of today will be the political problem of tomorrow. Our best sources of hope are to search for common solutions and to strengthen dialogue. But thinking and talking about dialogue can only be useful provided that it combined with real changes in behavior. Simply discussing our different values does not automatically increase mutual understanding. On the contrary, it can lead to deepening rifts if our dialogue serves only to confirm our differences of positions. The value of political and diplomatic mediation should also be seen from this perspective, as a practical manifestation of the ethic of responsibility. It seeks understanding through the concrete interpretation of standards, aiming to balance interests and to achieve small but clear steps towards change. Diplomacy correctly understood changes people's lives and turns words into action, because it knows that while theory often prevents compromise, practice enables it. This is why it is worthwhile continuing human rights dialogue, engaging with conflicting parties, pursuing negotiations and promoting peace. We are constantly being reminded of the gap between standards we have agreed and reality, and of the need to adhere to our obligation. And we are criticized about the half-heartedness of our efforts, and rightly so. But a sober analysis also shows that more effort and commitment have led to fewer armed conflicts, fewer deaths and injured people, more development, people who live longer and suffer less. Human security has been increased despite all the dangers. Commitment brings results. None of this would have been possible if behind the standards and their implementation and behind the institutions and their spheres of influence there were not people actively driven by an international ethic. Civil societies are witnessing a previously unknown dynamism. More than ever before, people are helping each other to help themselves, coming together to form communities to create solidarity and to fight for their rights. Globally active companies are increasingly committing themselves to taking on social responsibilities. Academics are laying the foundations of political awareness and transparent decision-making processes. But we also know that there are people who resist, people who try to discredit commitment as mere do-gooding and to undermine taking the responsibility to protect by claiming that it is interference in the internal affairs of sovereign states. There are also armchair pundits who like to be heard but don't want to think, discuss or make a contribution. Some who see neutrality as inactivity and others who want to render political debate and action irrelevant. We cannot simply dismiss such talk. We need a discussion about new ideas and their impact, objectivity in our thinking and actions, openness towards dilemmas and contradictions, and the honesty to acknowledge difficulties. And we must have ethically active global players, people like you, who accept social and economic responsibility because the world needs it. In fact, political successes have only been pushed through and implemented where it has been possible to form trans-regional coalitions of like-minded states, which are able to overcome religious and cultural barriers and commit themselves to the real problems at hand and the solutions to them. This seems to me to be the model for the future. Success has been achieved through openness towards others in the world, through intercultural skills and the acceptance of pluralism, and through recognizing similarities in each other and respecting differences. It has been achieved through alliances based on shared interests and values which permit at the same time flexibility and the existence of differences. Soft power rather than military might. The International Criminal Court, the Human Rights Council and the Landmine Convention have been created by coalitions of leading states from every region of the world. They all share the same fundamental values and visions about the basic standards of human society. Ladies and gentlemen, the big question of our time is still, how can human beings find a way to live together in peace, freedom and dignity? A solution to these questions demands practical philosophy rather than genius. It also requires ideals and people who stand up for them, defend them and champion them when the going gets tough. And it demands institutions that can make the necessary contribution to achieving these objectives. Finding a solution requires a coherent and effective multilateral system. And anyone who speaks about global issues today knows that we as representatives of states cannot solve everything alone and cannot solve anything at all unless we rapidly improve our partnerships with business, academia and society as a whole. We have different tasks but the same goals, and we must act together when problems are too big to solve on our own. With this thought in mind, I hope that we can succeed in strengthening the culture of implementation. We have made progress in defining and setting standards for globalization and in overcoming its negative consequences. It remains for us to direct our energies with an even sharper focus on action for real change. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Davos, a place where we can share experiences and make things happen. Thank you.